Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 4 of Let's Build a Graflex, and today we're going to be focusing on the painting and the customization of the inner chassis. Now, as we've gone over before, it is a two-piece design consisting of the board holder slash crystal chamber housing and the outer shell. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be painting both of them just to give them just a little more look and feel, and just make them a little more appeasing to the eye. So what we're going to be doing for that is we're going to be using some testers. If I can get my camera to zoom. Just some testers acrylic paint, so it's water soluble. We're just going to be using some gold, and I've got some silver here. I've got my mixing tray that comes with the basic testers kit that I bought, and it comes with a variety of different size paintbrushes. Here we've got a medium size. I'm probably going to be using the small one. But what we're also going to be doing is installing these brass rods. The crystal chamber has these posts all the way around. You can cut and insert threaded rod that go the length of the crystal chamber, so we're going to be measuring and cutting that as well. We have our crystal here that I've picked out that fits nicely in the crystal chamber itself. You can get crystals from a variety of different sources on the internet. I got these off of Amazon.com. They're just a bag of assorted all kinds of different size quartz crystals. These ones are clear, but as you can see, they come in a variety of sizes, and you just pick the one that fits the best in the chamber. And this one here, it slides in. I've modified this one a little bit. I flattened one of the edges so that it butts up against the LED a little nicer. But it fits nicely in the crystal chamber. And you want one that fits nice and snug. You don't want one too loose. The 3D printed plastic will flex a little bit, so you don't really have to worry about it breaking. You don't want one real big, but this one fits nice and snug. And then it just pops out with just a little bit of force from a screwdriver, something to get in there. I am going to be using some E6000 glue to keep this in permanently, as well as the LED. So you're going to want to get yourself a crystal. You can get them in all different colors as well. If you go to Etsy and type in like aqua quartz crystal, there's a whole bunch of stores that sell blue ones if that's the color you're going for, but they also have a whole variety of other colors. We're also going to have our LED here. This is a 5mm blue accent LED. You can get these in any color you want, and if you want color mixing, you can even get ones that have multiple leads coming off them, that have more than one color available. And to go along with that, we're also going to have our little battery pack here. AA, 2 AA's. I just put my alligator leads on there, so just to test the LED and to make sure, before we wire the whole thing up, to make sure that the chamber lights up and looks good. So you're also going to need, as I mentioned before, you're going to need some E6000 or some super glue. I wouldn't really recommend super glue. With the testers kit, I actually got some non-toxic cement for the plastic, for like model kits and stuff, so that might work well too. But I'm going to be using E6000 because I know it works. I know it works really well. So for right now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure and we're going to cut this brass rod to fit in our chassis. So we're going to do that, and then we will paint it, and then we'll get ready to do the LEDs and such. Okay, so to do the brass rod, the package comes with 2 long pieces of 0.114 inch brass rod. It works perfectly. It fits right in. So all we're going to do is we're just simply going to slide this in through the hole, and it is a tight fit. That's why I like this size rod, because it fits nice. You don't really have to bore the hole out. It doesn't fit real loose. And we're just going to push this all the way in until the bottom. So it's going to stop right there. And I don't know if you can see. Let me see if I can get my little light here. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's going to stop right in that hole right there. So it's just going to butt up against that. I am going to be using a little dab of E6000 down in the bottom half, down in the bottom retaining hole right here. I'm just going to put a little dab in each one of them, slide the rod all the way through, and it'll be retained down here, so that'll look, you won't even notice it. So all we're going to do is we are going to take a Sharpie. If I can get my camera to focus on this. There we go. So we just want to cut this brass rod right at the top. So I'm just going to take my Sharpie. It's hard to see because I'm blocking the light. Focus. There we go. You can see I made a mark just right at the top. I'm just going to make it a little bitter. Alright, so there's my mark. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Dremel. I have a Dremel here, and I'm going to use the cutoff wheel bit, and I'm just going to cut this brass rod, and then I'm going to use that rod that I'm going to cut. I'm just going to use that as a measurement for all of the other ones, and I'm just going to go down the line, and I'm just going to mark, mark, mark until I have all of them, and I'm just going to cut them all at once. Okay, now that we're over at the vise, I've got my brass rod inserted in the vise. It's nice and sturdy. It's not going anywhere. You want to keep the where you're going to be cutting close to the vise. That way, there's not a lot of vibration. You don't want it really high up. Keep it low, and we're just going to go ahead and we're just going to cut this. Okay, so now you can see we have it cut. We have our small little piece, but as you can see, this end that I cut is really kind of dirty. It's not a very good cut. I got metal flashing here, so I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to take my sanding bit for the Dremel, and I'm just going to clean up the ends. I'm just going to make that nice and smooth. Now we have our first one cut, and as you can see, this is the end that was just in the package, the way that it got shipped. This is the end that I cut. As you can see, I've cleaned it up. Use the sanding bit. You can even use some sandpaper to clean it up a little bit more, but I think that looks pretty good. You're never going to see it anyway. So it's nice and clean. So what we can do now is wait for the camera to focus again. There we go. And we're just going to test this. We're just going to put this in to one of the holes. Doesn't matter which hole. Slide it all the way down. Push it all the way until it stops. As you can see, that's pretty flush. That's not bad. The speaker, I don't think is going to butt up directly against it, so I don't think it has to be perfectly flush. But if it does, we will just sand down this edge a little more. We won't glue these in until the last step, until I know that everything else fits. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this piece as a guide for all of my other ones. So we have the new one that we cut, and we have our piece that's still the normal length. So what we're going to do is we're just going to line these up. So we know that the one we cut is good, so we're just going to use that one as the template. Use that one as a template, line up the edges. Get my Sharpie back out. I'm just going to mark right at the end. Just like that. So you're going to want to go off the bottom of the line. That'll give you right where you want to be. And I'm going to do this one at a time, because if you do this, it's going to take away material here. So the next one will be a little bit shorter. because if you just went off of this, what you could do is you can go off the top of the line, I guess, and go like that, and then make your mark. My Sharpie kind of sucks. And then like that. Now you're going to want to cut at the bottom, not the top like where my thumb is here, but at the bottom of the mark. That way you're the most accurate. But then line up the next one with the top of the mark, because that whole mark is probably going to get taken away when you cut. You're going to be getting rid of a lot of material there. So we're going to mark again. Focus camera. There we go. Move to the top once more. Mark. We're going to call that good. Now we don't have enough for another one, but this should be all we need. Because we should have one here. We'll have 2, 3, 4, 5. So we should have enough rod. Oops, zoom out a little more. Should have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if we look at our chassis, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. So that should be all we need. The package comes with 2 brass rods, but it looks like we're only going to need 1, and that'll cover the entire chassis. So you could actually do 2 chassis with just 1 package, and the brass rod is not that expensive. It's like $15, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut all these, and we'll come back when they're all cut and cleaned up and ready to go in. Okay, now we have all of our pieces of brass cut. I've shaved down the cut edges, made them nice and smooth, so they should go in very nicely. So we're just going to do a test fit here. This is not going to be the final assembly. We're just going to slide the brass rods right in. Like I said, it is a bit of a tight fit, but you'd rather have it tight than loose. We're just going to push that all the way in. You can see that one sits nice and flush. These are a little off from one another, but it doesn't matter as long as they all fit in nicely. You're never going to be able to see where they stop. As you can see, that one sits a little deeper down. That one was cut a little bit short, but you're never going to see this edge, and you're never going to see that edge. You're only going to see the sides. So as long as they fit, and they're going to be glued down in the bottoms, so you don't have to worry about them coming out. Now there's 2 on each side. There's nothing on the top because this is where our wire channel is. This channel right here is for all of our wires going from the board all the way to the LED, the speaker, the battery, everything like that. So we're not going to have anything up here, but there is one on the bottom. Now you don't necessarily have to put it in. You're never really going to see it, but I cut one because there's a hole for it, so it's going to get one. As you can see, some of them are a little taller than others, just by a fraction of an inch. But when you look at it, it all looks good. It's going to be really nice to look at when it's all lit up. So what we can do is now we can just do a test fit of a crystal. And as I said, I modified this. I just used my cutting wheel on my Dremel to file this down. What I'm going to do is I also modified my LED. I flattened the edge on this. Normally they come rounded, but I flatten the edge of it so that it mates up better with the flat edge of the crystal, and it'll just rest right on there. I've also seen people use diamond cutting bits, and they've drilled out the crystal so that the LED actually fits inside of the crystal and lights it up even better. I don't have any of those drill bits, otherwise I definitely would have done that, because that to me is a fantastic idea. So right now I'm just going to drop this in, and as you can see, there's a hole in there in the center of the chassis, right down in there, right there. That's where the LED is going to sit, So we're just going to drop my modified LED right inside the hole. There we go. As you can see, it's sitting down in there nicely. It protrudes into the crystal chamber. So now we can just slide in our crystal. And it's going to butt up right against the LED because it's nice and they're both nice and flat. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take my battery tester, and on LEDs like this, the longer prong is the positive side. So I'm just going to attach, without the LED coming out, that is. I'm just going to attach the positive. I'm going to go in from the other side. I'm going to connect my negative alligator clip. And then I'm just going to pop in my battery. Ta-da! Rearrange it there. There. So my LED is kind of sitting right where it's supposed to. My crystal is in there. It's lighting up nicely. We've got the brass rod. Now, if you wanted to leave it like this, of course, you know, hardwired and everything, but if you don't want to paint it, you absolutely don't have to. You don't even need to put in the brass rod or the crystal chamber or the LED or anything like that. If you don't want a crystal reveal, you can use this chassis just the way it is. But it looks so nice with the lit up crystal and the LED in there and the brass rods, and it'll look better when it's painted. So I think that that looks really good. Crystal lights up nicely. What I found with crystals too is if you go for clear crystals, the whiter they are, the better it lights up. The more crystal clear and like pure clear they are, the light escapes and they don't light up as well. Whereas they're cloudy and they're white and they look damaged, those imperfections actually hold the light better, and the crystal lights up better. So we're just going to disconnect these. So we now know that the LED works, and the crystal chamber looks really good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this back apart, and we're going to get ready to paint the chassis. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get ready to paint this. Now, as I said, I'm using acrylic paint, so it is diluted by water. So I just have a bottle of water. I have my mixing tray, so I'm just going to put a little bit in the mixing tray. Now, like I said, I'm just going to be doing some gold and silver accents along the outer shell and things like that. I'm going to be doing some dry brush techniques to get kind of a weathered effect on parts of it. The inner, I'm going to be doing kind of gold in the back with like a silver base around here, gold around here, and I think that's going to look really, really nice. So let's get started on that. Okay, I have my paint in my little tray here. I haven't diluted this yet. I'm going to see how it works without diluting it. I got my silver and I've got my gold. Those are the two I'm going to be mainly using. So we're just going to try this out and we're just going to see how this works. I haven't used this paint before, so we're just going to give this a shot. Now, you don't want to go too heavy on the paint because otherwise the chassis is not going to go together very well. So you want to be careful with how much paint you actually use, but you want to use enough to, you want to be careful on the areas where the chassis slides together, is basically what I'm saying, is such as these areas here where they slide together, the mating surfaces like these round edges and things like that. You really want to be careful. You don't want to put too much paint on because it will go together very, very tight, and if you have to get it back apart, it might not want to come back apart. So just be aware of that and just be very careful. So this is actually going on pretty well. The nice thing about acrylic paint is it does dry fairly quickly. So hopefully there's not much wait time. Now, I'm not a professional painter, I'm not a model builder, so if you are watching this and you do this all the time and you think that my technique is horrible, you're probably right, because I don't claim to be an expert at this by any stretch of the imagination. but this acrylic paint is going on very well. It's not very gobby. It's nice and smooth. I'm finding that I probably won't even have to dilute it at all. It's going on very nice, very evenly. The 3D plastic is very porous, so it's actually probably absorbing the paint very well, and it should create a nice bond. Now I'm not going to paint the whole thing because there are parts that you are not going to see. This part here is going to protrude out of the outer shell. When it sits in, when it locks in, that's going to sit outside of it. So I'm probably not going to paint the whole thing. I'm just going to worry about the parts that that you can see. So I'm going to do a little bit more work on this. I'm not going to film the whole thing. So let's come back after I've got quite a bit done, and we'll see how it came out. Okay, making some good progress here. I've got the gold pretty much done. It looks really rough because I'm going to go over the edges with silver, and I'm going to go over some of these points with silver too. But the Tester's acrylic paint actually works very, very well. I didn't have to dilute it with water. It dries very fast. It's seemingly durable. I'm scratching at it with my nail. It's not coming off. It seems to bond really well to the 3D printed plastic. And it looks really good. It's hard to tell on camera. Focus. Here we go. But it does have a nice metallic sheen to it. And like I said, all this rough stuff is going to be painted over with silver. I'm going to do some accents and things like that. I'm going to do this part in silver. This part I did in gold. I'm going to do some silver, and like I said, on some of the edges and stuff, on the outer shell, I'm going to do some weathering effects with the silver to kind of give it a worn look. But so far, it's coming along pretty good. So I'm just going to keep going with this, and we'll see how it looks when it's all finished. All right, we are back. I have finished with my painting. As you can see, it's a lot of gold, some silver accents, like around the bracing for the crystal chamber. I did a lot of silver on the edges. I think the black and silver and gold contrast will work very well. As you can see, I didn't do the back side of these because you're never going to see them, but I did do the edges and I did do the inside. I tried to get the inside of the spirals around the crystal as much as possible. It's hard to get in there, but I think it came out pretty well. It has, it's a little rough in some places, but I like it. It gives it a little personality. I didn't get all the black. It looks a little weathered. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. On the main body, I went a little rougher. I wanted some weathering around the edges. I just took some silver and just very lightly dabbed it on, and then I took some Scotch-Brite pad and I just scuffed it up, made it look pretty good. But I did the silver accents all over the place, gold, and I think it looks pretty good. I didn't bother with up here. This section here is going to be covered by the clamp, so I didn't really worry about it, and this part is going to be in the grenade section, so you're never ever going to see that. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. I might take some of the weathering off just to lighten it up a little bit, but overall, I think it looks really good. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to assemble the crystal portion of the chassis. So to do this, you're going to want your E6000 or super glue, or like I said, I really wouldn't recommend super glue. It might work, but it probably wouldn't work well. Super glue can kind of be fragile, whereas the E6000 is actually very flexible and it works great. This is clear. It does come in different colors, but I got it in clear, so it should work pretty well. Or you can use some of this modeler's cement. I don't know how elastic it is, how flexible, but I would think it would work pretty well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of my E6000 here. As you can see, it's very stringy. And I have a toothpick. I actually have a lot of couple toothpicks. I'm just going to take some right on the tip of the toothpick. Not a lot. You can see it's very stringy. Alright. So I have some here. Let me zoom in a little bit. I have some on the tip of the toothpick, and all I'm going to do, so my camera can focus here. There we go. Is I'm just going to put some right in the hole for, that's actually a bit too much. Get rid of some. There. Alright, so now all I'm going to do, I'm just going to take it, I'm just going to drop a dab right in the hole. It's right in there. Clean up the excess. Then I'm immediately not going to give it time to dry. I'm just going to take my brass rod, push it down on through, and push it into the hole. As you can see, the brass rod will go in pretty far. I'm just going to back it out to a point where I'm happy with it. There. Looks pretty good. It's sitting nicely in there. It's glued in at this end, and once this dries, you can easily wipe it away. It's not rigid. Like I said, it peels away pretty easily. Okay, as you can see, I have all my brass rods inserted. They're all glued down at the bottom. So that should cure. Well, it'll dry within about an hour, and it'll fully cure within 24 hours. So you just want to be careful not to jar them loose too much. Otherwise, they will pop back out. So the next thing we're going to do is insert our crystal and our LED. And we're actually going to do the LED first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim the contacts on the LED, and I'm actually going to solder my wires onto them that are going to go from the LED to the soundboard. It's going to be a lot easier to solder these wires on before the LED is glued into place. So let's go ahead and we'll do that now. Okay, as you can see, I have my LED in my helping hands. I added a little alligator clip to my helping hands, and all it does is just sits right in there, and you can get it to lock in fairly decently, because the normal jaws will damage wires, and I found that these hold wire a lot nicer. They're the same ones that I have on my battery tester. I just got a pack of them from Radio Shack, and they do hold in quite nicely inside the normal jaws, flatten out the prongs, and they work nice. So just a little tip for anybody that doesn't like the damage that the normal jaws do to the wiring. That's also an option. So for right now, I have my wire, which is stranded wire, and it comes in a whole bunch of colors. But for right now, we're just going to be focusing on black and red, because the red wire I'm having go to is a positive wire, obviously, and I'm just going to have that go to, I'm going to use the deep sleep pad on the soundboard. That way I don't need the kill key. So I just cut a strip of wire here. I left it very long, so I can always trim it later. As you can see, all I did was strip off just a small piece of the sheathing off the wire, and that's what I'm going to solder it up with. So now, these prongs on the LED are a little long for my taste, so we know that this long one here is positive. LEDs such as this, the longer prong is always positive, the shorter one's negative. So we know that. I'm going to deal with that one first. Okay, so we have this all shrunk down. It's nice and solid. It really gives some more strength and rigidity to the solder joint. You want to be careful when using the heat gun too. Too long and you'll melt the heat shrink, and with such small wire you will actually melt the wire sheathing as well, and it'll permanently damage that. So we have our red wire done. I'm going to go ahead and do the black off camera, and we'll come back when I'm all done with that. Okay, now we have both of our wires soldered on, and the heat shrink is on there nice and secure. They both came out pretty nice. So now we have these long lengths of wire that are going to go to our soundboard. So what you can do is, if you've ever watched any of the Custom Saber Shop's videos on YouTube, Rob likes to twist his wires together. It's a good practice, and the way to do that is you can just twist them like this, but it's not going to stay very well. So what you can do is you can use heat, and I just use my heat gun. Just a mild heat setting, work it back and forth, and I'm just going to twist this whole thing, and then I will just untwist them the amount that we don't need once it comes time to solder them. So let's go ahead and do that now. Alright, so as you can see, I just have my heat gun just sitting on its back, facing up in the air. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it on low. Doesn't need to be too hot. I'm going to feel for the heat. That should be pretty good. So now I'm just going to run the wire over the heat for a second. Then once it's hot, I'm going to actually take it away from the heat, and that's when I'm going to twist it. I'm going to let it sit for a second, let it get cool, run it over the heat again, let it get hot, take it away, twist it some more, hold it, maybe blow on it a little bit, cool it down. When it cools, as you can see, it stays nice and twisted. You can go with a finer twist if you want. You can get it as fine as you'd like. You see here, I have a little finer twist on it. Focus. There we go. You can see, you can do it as often as you want. You can apply as much heat as you want. Just make sure you don't melt the wire. Okay, after a few minutes with the heat gun, I have my wires nice and evenly twisted. I didn't go all the way to the top because I know that this is going to be more than enough wire to go from where the LED is going to sit to the soundboard. All of that excess, I'm just going to leave it there anyway. But that's all I wanted to twist for now. That's really all we should need. But as you can see, it's a nice even twist. It just makes it look neater. It keeps the wires, it's easier for routing. It just looks a lot nicer. So now we can go ahead and we can actually glue our LED into the chassis. So let's go ahead and do that. So for gluing the LED in, I'm just going to use, again, some E6000 and a new toothpick, or the old toothpick if you still have it. Doesn't matter. I'm just going to get a little bit, doesn't take too much, just a little bit on the tip of the toothpick. That's pretty good. And I am going to put it around the base of the LED, where the LED is going to sit in the chassis. You just kind of gob it on there. You're never really going to see this part anyway. As long as it's not on the tip of the LED. Wow, this really doesn't want to focus today, does it? As long as you don't get the glue on the tip of the LED where the light's going to be coming out, you should be okay. Just get a nice even coating all the way around. Something like that. It doesn't look very good, but like I said, you're never going to see it, and all you're doing is trying to get it to stick. So now we're just going to slide this in to the chassis, line up the hole, Pop it in. I'm going to use a small screwdriver. I'm just going to push down on the LED, force it into the hole all the way. If we look through, we can see our LED in there, right in the back, right around here. Look down. Looks pretty good. Press it in a little harder, make sure it's really not coming out of there. Go down from another angle. Alright, now this is a loose fit inside the chassis. The LED does not fit snug. It is a looser fit. And I'm going to route my wires actually up through the top, because that's where the soundboard is going to go. Through the top. Soundboard is going to sit right here. So just route that up. As you can see, the soundboard is going to sit right here. We're going to solder it outside. It's going to be hanging off. So as you can see, this is plenty of wire. I might have wasted a little bit of wire, but it's better to have too much than too little. If we look, our LED is nice and secure in there. Like I said, give it 24 hours to cure permanently, and then still be gentle with it. So what we can do now is we can go ahead and glue in our crystal using the same method. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the E6000. I'm actually going to apply it to the inside of the chassis. That way it doesn't get on any parts of the crystal that I don't want. I'm just going to apply this on the different parts of the spiral section of the chassis all the way around. Now, like I said, if you get this in someplace you don't want it, it does come off pretty easily. It's really interesting how it makes a good bond, but it's still yet so easily removed. Like I said, if you pick a crystal that is more of a press fit, you don't really have to worry about gluing it. The glue is just there for reassurance purposes. It should hold fine without it. So I'm just going to slide this in. I'm just going to slide in my crystal until it contacts the LED. You can see the crystal's right in there, pushing against the LED. It actually pushed my LED out just a hair, so I know it's all the way in, so I'm just going to push that back in. Push from both sides, get it to really lock in. And I'm going to call that good. Alright, I have my wires cut just a little bit, still very long. I didn't cut them, I just cut the sheathing off. And I'm just going to use my battery tester here. Positive to positive, negative to negative, and look at that. That is cool. We have our illuminated crystal chamber. With a blue crystal. That looks very nice. Very nice indeed. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now we will wait for this to dry. Let it sit overnight, just so if I'm doing anything else, it doesn't damage anything. We can remove this, actually. What I'm going to do now is disconnect this. Put our tester over to the side. Now when you remove the inner chassis from the outer chassis, what you're going to want to do is use a screwdriver, a small screwdriver, go in from the bottom, and then take another one and go in from the top. What you're going to want to do is apply just very slow pressure and just spread it out, and it'll just pull it right out. Do not go fast. Do not put too much pressure on it, otherwise you will snap the plastic. And that's it. So I'm going to put the inner section off to the side for a while and let that really cure, let everything settle. And the only thing we're going to need to worry about for a little while at least is the outer shell. But for now, that is the inner chassis. So we now have our complete 3D printed crystal chamber chassis, all painted, all done. It lights up, it looks great. So that's it. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of Let's Build a Graflex, where we go over how to assemble and wire our LED. Now this is the optic holder for the LED, that's what I'm going to be using, so stay tuned for that episode.